Hey, welcome back. This is Jana with Purl Together. This week's video is going to be more of a podcast kind of a thing where I'm going to show you what I'm working on. We'll talk about what's coming up, and I'm just going to share some kind of experimentation thing I've been doing lately with some swatching. So stay tuned for that. If you want to skip to a certain section, will put some timestamps down below. Okay, before we get started, I'm going to give a big shout out and a thank you to some new patrons who have joined recently over at patreon.com/Purl Together. So these are people that have contributed a little pledge each month, and you can go over there and see what I'm offering for various membership levels. So thank you so much to Lenore, Melissa, Vicky, Margaret, Kathy, Alma, Carol, Teresa, Lori, Susanna, and Pam. Thanks for supporting the channel. You all help bring these videos each and every time, and I very much appreciate that. I've been doing a little experimenting. So this is all about swatching, and I know that a lot of people hate that and don't want to swatch, but I got thinking about how to maybe make it easier, and I had this theory and I might have disproved it. So that's kind of a bummer. Your mileage may vary. This method might work for you, and it's worth testing to see. So I was knitting this little hat out of sport weight indie dyer yarn for a friend, and I'm getting 7 stitches per inch. So I thought, instead of swatching in the round, like for a future project, a sweater or whatever, you know how we have these methods where we swatch in the round and we make a little tube and think that's good, or a speed swatch where you knit across and then have a big long float that comes back around the backside and then you knit across again. So you're just knitting and there's no purling involved, which that's the idea, because when you purl, like when you're knitting stockinette stitch and you knit across and then purl back, the purling, bringing the yarn forward introduces a tiny little bit more yarn. So depending on the knitter and how your tension and your knitting style, stockinette swatch may give you a different gauge than knitting in the round. So, but I was thinking, what about garter stitch? Does that give, if you knit a flat swatch with just knit, 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 and you create garter stitch, is that the same stitches per inch as knitting in the round? And I think that it's going to depend on the person, but it might be worth doing some experimenting yourself and seeing. For me, it is not, sadly. So I got 7 stitches per inch on the hat. But when I did a little swatch and garter stitch, it's a little bigger. I got 6.5. And I don't know why that is, because you're still just knitting back and forth. And it's the same needles. I think it's the same needles I use to knit the hat with. But that's another thing that affects your gauge. Knitting with a metal needle, for example, as opposed to a wooden needle, can affect your gauge. Anything is, have you had a little wine? Anything can affect your gauge. So I thought that was really interesting that garter stitch is a little bit bigger. You can see also on my swatch where I switched to stockinette stitch. And even though garter stitch appears a little bigger, my stockinette, if this is blocked, it's going to be the same. So my stockinette stitch is also 6.25 to 6.5 stitches per inch. My garter stitch is 6.5 to 6.75, and my hat here is 7. So that, while that doesn't sound like a lot of difference when you're only talking half to 1/4 stitch per inch, over the course of a 36 or 40 inch bust, half a stitch is going to make a big difference overall. Everything is exponentially multiplied when you're talking about the circumference of an entire sweater. So something to think about and experiment with, just so you can see how your tension and your different styles of knitting affect your gauge. So I thought that was an interesting experiment. For this particular project, it didn't turn out quite the way I wanted it to, as far as I was really hoping my garter stitch would be the same as knitting in the round. So I'd have another little speed swatching method for in the round projects. Maybe next time it will be the same, but for this particular project, it was not. Anyway, okay, moving on. I'm about to make a video for the Baroco Mystery Knit Along squares per month. I will have a video coming out for the August squares on the first Thursday, which will be the 7th. And this coming square is all about stranded colorwork. So that'll be a fun block to do. It'll take a little bit longer, but once you kind of get in a groove, it's not that tedious. It's actually going to be a lot of fun. So stay tuned for that. The other thing that we've been doing lately is Casapinka has come out with her annual summertime mystery shawl knit-along. So the clues come out each Friday. Last Friday, the clue came out. I did not cast on until Saturday because I'm a little superstitious about how you're not supposed to cast on a project on a Friday. I don't know where that came from. Anne Frost and I talked about that during our podcast last December. She's not sure where that came from. But why tempt fate, right? So I cast on Saturday and I still had trouble. I thought I would knit a wider version because I really wanted more of a schlanket instead of a shawl. So I cast on double the number of stitches. Well, then things went awry. So I ended up knitting through about maybe 30% of clue 1 and frogging it and starting over with the correct number of stitches. Anyway, I'll show you a portion of clue number 1. If you don't want to see it, now is because it's a mystery. Now, clue number 1 has been out for a week, but if you don't want to see it, now is your chance to look away. Spoiler alert right here. Okay, I'm using very bright colors and having a lot of fun at it. So this is going to be pretty woo, when I'm done. But I'm digging it, and I like how these little yarn overs right here kind of look like little cat's paws when it's blocked. That's going to look really neat. This is called a daisy stitch. And then when this is blocked open, these are supposed to be little portals like on the side of a ship. So the mystery knit along is called Hiss and Vinegar because it's Sharon, the cat, has gone on a cruise. Casapinka is just creative. There's a whole story that goes along with the whole thing. It's a lot of fun. Anyway, we are also having Zoom sessions where we are meeting for a couple hours on a Monday night and knitting our clues together. So if you're interested in joining me for that, registration information is down below in the video description. And as always, patrons get 20% off. So that's been fun. Clue number 1 is a lot of knitting. Clue number 2 just came out today, and it is a little more brief. So there'll be some time to catch up, especially since I frogged my first attempt, despite not casting on a Friday. Anyway, so I'm digging my colors. It's going to be nice and bright. It'll be fun to wear this winter, potentially, or maybe I'll raffle it off. Anyway, speaking of raffles, I've also have my charity knitting raffle is live. I'll link below to that as well. It's an Afghan, and you can enter to win that. That's part of my charity that I'm involved in, the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. So I'll put the information down below for that as well. I think that's about all that's going on at the moment. I'm doing some traveling in August. So there'll be a week or so where you probably won't hear much from me because I'm going to go do a trip. Not knitting related necessarily, although I'll, of course, visit some yarn shops. Anyway, all right, I hope it's not too blistering hot where you are and that you're enjoying whatever knitting that you're doing. I would love to see you on Monday if you want to come and knit the Casapinka mystery shawl with us. Okay, take care. I hope you have a wonderful weekend.